Good evening. Welcome to the National News Broadcast. I'm Kasuni Balachandra.
And I'm Tarakat Yarachi. First, a look at the stories making the headlines this evening. Religious observances to mark Posun Full Moon Poya Day to be conducted adhering to health guidelines and with limited participation of devotees. Island-wide curfew on the 24th and 25th of May. The Kingsbury Hotel bomber is revealed to have used 32 bank accounts and 14 telephone numbers. Steps have been taken to deploy unutilized and underutilized state lands for cultivation purposes and animal husbandry. The Attorney General states before the Supreme Court that the petitions regarding the general election are misleading and faulty.
Moving on to those and other stories in detail. Steps have been taken to deploy unutilized and underutilized state lands for cultivation purposes and animal husbandry. A discussion in this regard was held at Temple Trees last evening under the patronage of the chairman of the Presidential Task Force on Economic Restoration and Poverty Alleviation, Basil Rajapaksa. Heads of ministries and organizations attended the discussion with many other participants. Agriculture, export crops, livestock and fisheries have been identified as the sectors significant in ensuring food security and economic restoration. Special attention was focused on identifying the necessary lands needed to uplift the production of these sectors. In the country, the number of families whose domestic income is below 10,000 rupees is 255,731, whilst the number of families whose domestic income is between 10,000 and 20,000 rupees is around 568,715. Thereby, the chairman of the Presidential Task Force on Economic Restoration and Poverty Alleviation, Basil Rajapaksa, says the objective is to increase the domestic income of around 1 million families. The chairman of the Presidential Task Force on Economic Restoration and Poverty Alleviation, Basil Rajapaksa, says the international estimate is that a daily revenue of $5.50 can be expected. Therefore, the task force perceives that a monthly revenue of 25,000 rupees should be targeted. Therefore, he noted that the expected revenue from 1 million families needs to be increased to the level of earning 25,000 rupees a month. He further explained that this program should be spread over 5 categories when expanding the program on a nationwide basis. He explained that these 5 categories are agrarian service centers, local government bodies, the distribution of essential food items, retail and wholesale, and the cooperative sector. The administrative aspects in the provision of state services will be executed by the divisional secretariats through the coordination of other entities with the Samruddhi Department and economic centers for livelihood development. Therefore, he requests the heads of ministries and organizations to furnish details on land areas that can be utilized for agriculture and livestock development. A priority objective is to bring about economic restoration, poverty alleviation, and ensure food security in the country without outside influence. Thereby taking maximum advantage of lands, the identification of lands for cultivation purposes is underway. The identification of crops that can be cultivated depending on the sort of the land and the production requirement is also part of the project. Enhancing production through home gardening for household requirements and for the domestic market was also discussed. Land which has been vested with certain institutions by irregular means will be properly regulated and will be deployed for production. The discussion also focused on preparing a productive plan for the fisheries sector.
The President's Media Division notifies that curfew will be enforced throughout the island on Sunday and Monday. Except for the Colombo and Gampaha districts, curfew in the other districts will be enforced at 8 p.m. tomorrow and will be enforced until 5 a.m. on Tuesday. In the Colombo and Gampaha districts, curfew will be enforced until further notice. In other districts, after Tuesday, curfew will be in place as before from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. The President's Media Division notifies that the measures taken to restore day-to-day public life and activities while the curfew is in force in the Colombo and Gampaha districts will be underway tomorrow and from Tuesday as before.
Health authorities emphasize on the need to mark the Posun festival this year throughout the island with a limited participation of devotees and in adherence with health guidelines. Special attention was focused on this point at a discussion held at the Temple Trees under the patronage of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa yesterday. As the COVID-19 epidemic is currently within the control of the health authorities, at the discussion, it was decided to carry out Poya Day meritorious exercises whilst maintaining social distancing. The State Poson Festival will be held at the Mihintale sacred site under the theme Arogya Parama Labha, Health is the Greatest Wealth and Profit. A special Poson Pinkam will be also conducted at the Atamasthana and the Viharas at Situl Power, Mulkirigala and Tissabaharama. The health authorities discourage persons who are at risk, such as patients suffering from various illnesses and elderly persons, from participating in these religious exercises. As in other years, the chanting of Pirit and Dhamma sermons, Hevisi Puja, Kapraka Puja and Aloka Puja are permitted, but with a limited number of participants. At the discussion, the importance of obtaining guidelines from the PHIs of the area and the area MOH office when organizing such religious exercises was noted. Health authorities also emphasized that this year, Peraharas should be limited to only mostly necessary events and should be restricted to the premises of the respective Vihara, while steps should be taken to limit public participation. The discussion was attended by the chief incumbent of the Situl Power Raja Mahavihara, Venerable Mataramba Hemaratanathera, Minister Chamal Rajapaksa, Secretary to the Prime Minister Ghamini Senarat, Southern Provincial Governor Vili Gamage, Secretary to the Ministry of Buddha Sasana, Cultural and Religious Affairs Bandula Haris Chandra, Commissioner General of Buddhist Religious Affairs Sunandakarya Peruma, and a group of prelates and state officials.
Minister Dallas Allah Peruma calls on the parties concerned to refrain from spreading rumours with regard to the national program in place on behalf of health and safety of school children. Speaking at a discussion held at the Matra District Secretariat today, the minister said he condemns false statements that mislead the public. The discussion was held to evaluate the progress of measures taken on the management of the COVID-19 emergency situation. At the discussion, the minister stated that the decision to reopen schools will be taken after a full confirmation is given by the health authorities that a conducive environment for the reopening of schools prevails in the country. The discussion was attended by a group of public officials, including the Matra District Secretary and the District Director of the Health Services. Minister Dallas Allah Peruma observed that a news item had been published stating that the Education Ministry has notified the body temperature measurement equipment will be provided, but all of the equipment need to be procured by the school itself. The minister states that the said news item is totally false. Minister Allah Peruma further stated that the cost involved in providing body temperature measuring equipment, basins for hand washing and a hospital bed per school will be borne by the Ministry of Education. The minister further said a sum of 30,000 rupees will be granted for all schools that have less than 200 students for the procurement of these facilities. He added that even yesterday, 30 million rupees was provided for a particular education zone. Mr. Dallas Allah Peruma advises politicians and trade unions against issuing statements or releases without proper knowledge on issues pertaining to children, as concerns pertaining to children are extremely sensitive.
The Attorney General has stated before the Supreme Court that the petitions challenging the dissolution of Parliament by the President and the holding of the general election on the 20th of June consist of content that is misleading and faulty. The Attorney General calls on the Supreme Court to without delay reject the petitions without taking them up for examination. The fundamental rights petition challenging the dissolution of Parliament and the holding of the general election on the 20th of June were taken up for hearing for the fifth day today. Additional Solicitor General of the State, Indika Dilmani de Silva, appeared on behalf of the Attorney General. The petitions were taken up before a 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court headed by Chief Justice Jayant Jayasuriya. President's Counsel Ramesh De Silva, presenting details in court this morning on behalf of Presidential Secretary P.B. Jayasundara, stated that the Director General of Health Services has notified his client by way of written correspondence that the procedure on holding the general election whilst maintaining social distancing can be initiated. Thereby, President's Counsel Ramesh De Silva, in his submission, points out that the request by the Elections Commission for a time period of several weeks raises issues. Thereafter, Additional Solicitor General Indika Diumini de Silva, presenting details, stated that the non-citing of many extremely important parties as respondents in these petitions is a serious legal error. Nominations for the forthcoming general election have been submitted by 7,452 candidates. Additional Solicitor General Indika Diumini de Silva stated that if the court is to grant the relief called for in the petitions, it would result in serious compromise to the contestants. The petitioner stated that accepting nominations on a public holiday is illegal. The Additional Solicitor General stated that although public holidays were declared during the period in which nominations were called, the Elections Commission is able to accept nominations on such days as well. Chief Justice Jayanta Jayasuriya questioned as to whether there is any legal restriction as per the Elections Act against the acceptance of nominations by returning officers on public holidays. Additional Solicitor General Indika Diumini de Silva responded, stating that as per the Parliamentary Elections Act, there is no legal provision against the accepting of nominations on public holidays. She further stated that at that point, no political party complained to the Elections Commission questioning the legality of accepting nominations on holidays. The Deputy Solicitor General pointed out that complaining before the Supreme Court after a lapse of 2 months, alleging that the acceptance of nominations on public holidays is illegal, is totally unjustifiable. She further stated before the Supreme Court that it is a disappointing situation to see one member of the Elections Commission petition in the Supreme Court complaining that the acceptance of nominations on holidays is illegal, whereas the unity of the Elections Commission needs to be upheld by the member. Further considerations of the petitions were postponed to 10 a.m. on Tuesday. Additional Solicitor General Indika Diumini de Silva will make further submissions on behalf of the Attorney General.
The number of fully recovered COVID-19 patients to have been discharged from hospital stands at 620. 428 patients are undergoing further treatment. 2 newly confirmed patients were reported today. According to the report released by the Epidemiology Unit, as at 10 a.m. today, within the past 24 hours, 16 fully recovered patients were discharged from their respective hospitals. 27 newly confirmed cases were detected yesterday, out of which 15 were amongst those sent to the Giragama quarantine center upon arriving in the country from Dubai, while 1 person was amongst those sent for quarantine upon arriving from Kuwait. The other 11 persons are Navy personnel. Director General of Health Services Consultant Dr. Anil Jasingha says the reason for a higher number of positive cases to be reported these days is because of PCR testing is conducted targeting persons who are at a heightened risk of getting infected. Thereby, Dr. Jasingha predicts that the number of Navy personnel to test positive will decrease in the days ahead. He further stated 1,603 PCR tests were conducted yesterday and 449 of these were conducted on samples collected from several locations. Also, 167 PCR tests were conducted on those undergoing quarantine. Minister Pavitra Vaniyarachi has briefed the Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, on the future measures the health authorities will implement as a matter of priority in reopening the country in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. The minister states all steps that need to be taken as a government to control the disease have been taken and the measures will be further strengthened in the days ahead. She further stated that relief measures will be continuously underway until day-to-day public life returns to normal. The Cardinal appreciated the steps taken by the government to control the COVID-19 disease and commended the service rendered by the health sector. Meanwhile, a group of 7 persons who completed their quarantine at the Habarduba quarantine center run by the police were discharged today. Public health inspectors in the Biyagama division conducted an inspection into whether operations in the factories of the Biyagama Investment Promotion Zone are being conducted according to health guidelines. A stock of disinfection liquid to disinfect fisheries harbours operated by the Fisheries Corporation was handed over by the chairman of the Petroleum Storage Terminal, Mohammed Uwais, to chairman of the Sri Lanka Fisheries Corporation, Captain Nihal Kapitipula, today. The disinfectant liquid has been manufactured by the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation.
Animals at the Bangtung Zoo in Indonesia have been on a strict diet since the zoo closed back in March, and staff says they may soon have to resort to the worst-case scenario, sacrificing some animals to feed the others.
It's mealtime for the tigers at the Bandung Zoo in Indonesia. But these carnivores have been on a smaller, stricter diet, not because they need to lose weight, but rather to preserve food stocks. The zoo's revenue has dried up since it closed on March 23rd to comply with lockdown measures. Spokesperson Sulfan Sifahi says the zoo can only afford to feed its 850 animals until July. After that, they may have to consider sacrificing some of its animals to feed the others.
We are planning for the worst case scenario. We have around 30 dotted deer and we have identified the old and unproductive ones that can no longer breed to be slaughtered to save the carnivores, such as the Sumatran tiger and Javan leopard, which we think are more important.
Sifahi says the zoo requires 400 kilograms of fruit every day and more than 120 kilograms of meat every other day. But now it relies on food and money donations. Carnivores like tiger Fitri are receiving 8 kilograms of meat instead of 10 every 2 days. And while the zoo is still meeting minimum welfare standards, Sifahi also says the ration diets could lead to greater health risks for the animals and changes in their habits. Orangutan caretaker Ayap Saipudin has seen those changes firsthand.
When they are inside the cage, they have rage and throw things. The food is finished, but they still want to eat. Maybe they are not yet full. If they were full, they would not do that. Sometimes when I sit, they throw things at me. So that means, yes, the food is not enough.
The Bandung Zoo is not alone in its struggles. The Indonesia Zoo Association estimates that 92% of the country's zoos, home to nearly 5,000 animals, will only be able to feed their animals until the end of the month.
A Pakistan International Airlines Airbus A320 passenger jet flying from Lahore has crashed in a densely populated residential area of Karachi. Flight PK-8303 carrying 91 passengers and 8 crew crashed on approach to the busy Jinnah International Airport. The provincial health minister said at least 11 people had died, but a far higher toll is feared. Reports say at least one passenger survived the crash. Thick black smoke rose from a scene of devastation in the Model Colony area. TV footage showed rescue crews combing through the debris strewn across the streets of the district. 3.2 kilometers, 2 miles northeast of the airport, where a number of houses have been destroyed. The plane had lost contact with air traffic control just after 2:30 p.m. local time at 9:30 GMT. An airline spokesman said the Chief Minister of Sindh, the province where the plane crashed, has declared an emergency in all Karachi's hospitals. The cause of the crash is yet to be determined. PIA Chief Executive Air Vice Marshal Arshad Malik said the pilot had told traffic control that the plane was experiencing technical difficulties. The crash comes just days after the country began allowing commercial flights to resume after a coronavirus lockdown. Pakistanis across the country are preparing to celebrate the end of Ramadan, with many travelling back to their homes in cities and villages.
And in more local stories, today it was revealed before the Presidential Commission inquiring into the Easter Sunday attacks that the Kingsbury Hotel bomber Mohammed Azam Mubarak had operated 32 bank accounts and had 14 telephone numbers. In addition, it was also revealed before the Commission today that the bomber on the night before the attack had visited his rented house in Kolonava, where his child and wife resided. Testifying before the Presidential Commission today, Chief Inspector of Police AGY Swarnakirti Singh stated that the bank accounts in question were utilized for the purchase of vehicles and several other purposes. He also stated that the bomber had used 14 telephone numbers since 2010 until the bomb attack on Kingsbury Hotel. It was also revealed that the bomber by the name of Mohammed Azam Mubarak on the 20th of April 2019 had arrived at a previously reserved room at the Kingsbury Hotel, bringing with him luggage and explosives, and had left the hotel at night. The bomber had reportedly hailed a cab near the hotel and had headed for the Kolonava area, whilst en route had purchased food items from a supermarket in the vicinity. The CID officer stated before the commission that the evidence was unearthed when perusing CCTV footage pertaining to the investigations. The bomber had thereafter left for his rented home and spent 1.5 hours with his wife and child. It was also revealed today that thereafter the bomber revisited the Kingsbury Hotel that night, and the following day, that is on the morning of the 21st of April 2019, he exploded the bomb at the hotel premises. The CID officer in his testimonies also stated that it was revealed that the Kingsbury bomber had also been part of the pre-training involving the exploding of a motorcycle at a coconut estate along Sea Lane in Kathankudi.
And for your weather update, the Sri Lanka Navy states the Samudra vessel has been able to approach the Sri Lanka multi-day fishing vessels that were swept away into the sea areas of Indonesia. Navy spokesperson Lieutenant Commander Isuru Surya Bandara says currently communications with the lost vessels have been established.
Yes, as you all know, more than 30 Sri Lankan multi-day fishing trawlers. So they were driven away of the sea. They were driven off to the sea of Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which are coming under the Indonesian search and rescue region. But the commander of the Navy directed Sri Lanka Navy ship Samudra to sail immediately to reach the area and to assist and provide fuel and water assistance required by those fishing vessels which are in trouble. So anyway, the ship has reached the location. Now they have established communication with them, and we are very happy to say that everybody is okay, and the ship is communicating with them, and they conveyed us that everybody is fine. So we hope that everybody will be back here very soon. But by the way, the ship is providing the fuel and the food and the other required assistance by these fishing vessels. And also, we will ensure their safety and the security on the way till the time they reach back. Till the time they hit back. Till the time they reach back to home ports very soon.
Meanwhile, the Met Department forecasts showers at times in western, Sabaragamuwa central and northwestern provinces and in the Galle and Matra districts tomorrow. Showers or thunder showers can be expected at a few places in the Uva province after 2 p.m.
His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit states investigations into the Easter Sunday attacks are at a satisfactory level. However, certain groups are attempting to sabotage the investigations by various means. The Cardinal expressed these views upon visiting the chief incumbent of the Amarapura chapter, Most Venerable Kotugoda Dhammavasa Thera. His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit states that he observes that investigations into the Easter Sunday attacks are going ahead at a satisfactory level. However, information has been received that certain groups are devising various plans to weaken the investigations. His Eminence further stated that there may be powerful individuals in certain sectors. However, they need to understand that as much as they have the right to life, those who were killed in the attacks also had the very same right to life.
That's all the news we have for you tonight. The national news broadcast will return tomorrow. And until then, a very good night to you all.
Good night.